My name is Jacob Sherman, and today is May 25th, 2010. I'm here in Denison, Texas, visiting with Dr. Clyde Kindell. This interview is part of the O State Stories project of the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. Sir, I want to thank you for being with us today and allowing us into your home to interview you. So I just want to thank you. So can you share with us your background? First off, where did you grow up? And what was your family life like, and that type of information?
I grew up in Checotah County, near Checotah, Oklahoma, on a rural farm. We had, back in the Depression days, we operated about 160 acres, primarily crops, and had some dairy cattle, and it was a subsistence type farming operation. It wasn't a business, it was just trying to make a living during Depression days. And I attended a rural school from the first grade through the 8th grade. It's no longer there. Then I attended high school at Checotah, and I was graduated from there in 1945.
I always ask this question, but do you remember the first tractor that you drove?
Oh yes, in fact, until I got into high school, senior in high school, we used horses, and I plowed with horses. Our whole farm operation was horse-drawn equipment. In fact, my father had 2 teams. We had 4 horses, 2 teams. Because my mother, she also had a team of horses, and they would go to the field together while we were youngsters. And my mother would plow in the field along with Dad with her team of horses. So, no, we got an old used John Deere tractor when I was senior in high school, about 1944.
How many kids did you graduate at Checotah High School?
I think there were probably about, as I recall, about 20 of us. It was beginning of the war years. In fact, it was in the middle of the war years, and some of the older students, even out of grade school, had been drafted. So we had some vacant seats because some of our graduates were in the military.
Maybe could you recall a little bit the time period that you grew up, the Depression era? What stands out in your memory?
Well, one of the things was the Dust Bowl days in the 30s. Even though we lived in McIntosh County and we were out at the rural school, the sun disappeared about 3 o'clock in the afternoon behind the dust clouds out in western Oklahoma. And we, in our home, which was quite primitive in a sense, rural home, the dust would settle on our tablecloths, and it just was, I'd say that was one of the most memorable things was that Dust Bowl days. Of course, we were also, from the standpoint, we didn't have any money. Thing that I'd say impressed me as far as the economy was concerned is that the government was buying cattle, paying $3 or $4 a head, and having them slaughtered in the pasture, and then wouldn't permit people to get the meat off of them. So the Depression days were pretty difficult.
So it was subsistence farming. You raised cattle. Did you have dairy cows as well, or?
We primarily had dairy cattle. We didn't have beef cattle. And we had hogs, and we butchered hogs, and of course we sold milk and cream. We had chickens, and we would trade eggs and cream for groceries. We did bartering in those days. We'd take a bucket of cream and eggs to town, and we traded for groceries rather than get money for them.
And where would you trade, in Checotah?
In Checotah, yeah, there's one, the grocerman would have a milk cream testing device, and he would test the cream and pay us according to the butter fat of the cream. And then again, he'd candle the eggs to see that they weren't hatchable baby chicks in them. And then we would trade so many eggs, so much cream for so many groceries.
What crops did you raise?
We raised primarily corn and oats and cotton. Corn and oats was primarily to feed our livestock. Our cotton was a cash crop. That was, Dad would borrow money out of the bank to put in a crop, and the cotton would be sold to pay off our yearly debts that would cost of operation. But of course we had a garden, and Mother would can. We didn't have an ice box or any kind of refrigeration. We did buy an old used ice box in about 1938. I guess I was 10 years old before we even had ice. It was just, of course, no electricity, no running water. We used outhouses and such. So, but anyway, that is kind of the way we lived. It was, again, it was subsistence. We didn't, just enough to, we didn't think about it as being business or making any money, because it just wasn't there. It was just to make a living. We farmed to live.
Were you involved with any activities in high school?
I enjoyed playing basketball. We did have a football team, but many of the students had been drafted. I played a little bit of football and never did particularly care for it, but our basketball team won the district conference my senior year, and I would walk. Of course, we had buses that would come and pick us up, but during the winter when the buses couldn't run, I'd walk about 3 miles to town just to be sure I got there in time to play basketball.
And that was in the morning?
Well, yeah, I would, of course, the basketball practice was in the afternoon. I was sure make it in time to practice basketball.
Oh, you'd go home and do chores and then go back to practice?
Well, what we did, of course, we did chores before we went to school. Each of us milked about, each of our kids had about 3 cows to milk before we went to school, and then after school too. And if we weren't home, we had to get the other kids to milk the cows for us. We had our chores to do. Some fed the hogs, some fed the chickens, some carried in firewood. Youngest one usually carried in firewood and carried in coal. Mother cooked. Our cooking stove was a wood stove. Our heating stove was coal. We'd burn coal in our heating stove.
So it stayed pretty warm during the winter time?
Well, we had to get that old pot-bellied stove red hot. But as far as being warm, Dad never would admit heat to be, the stove be on during the night time, afraid of fire. And so the goldfish bowl, Mother had always had at least one goldfish. She'd have to thaw that goldfish out every morning. And sometimes we had a snowstorm, there'd be a streak of snow across the kitchen floor. I'll say back in those days, it was pretty primitive out on the farm.
And then, what do you remember about the war years prior to your service?
Well, I remember where we were at the time. We got word of Pearl Harbor. We were visiting some of our neighbors, and we were out playing touch football, and we got word late Sunday afternoon that Pearl Harbor had been attacked. We really didn't know a whole lot about where Pearl Harbor was and all that. and I never dreamed that eventually it would suck me into the system. My older brother, though, he was nearly 4 years older than I, and he got into the Marines, and he went through all the Pacific encounters. Iwo Jima was his last encounter. But the fact that as far as during the war years, rationing, everything was rationed, and we were certainly restricted on what we could consume. And of course, just keeping up with the news, and with a brother in the Marines, it was, as well as relatives, so it was something that was a concern of ours.
How did you hear about the news from the fronts?
It's primarily when you went to see a movie, they'd have news clips at the end. You never know how old those news clips were, but that's about the main reason. Sometimes we would take a weekly paper, and of course, the time we got the paper, it was history rather than news. But no, it was, and then of course we had an old battery operated radio, and we had listened to the radio.
Did you, if the war wouldn't have happened, would you been on the track to go to college? Or was that in your plans all along, or
Yes.
being in the service and getting the GI Bill facilitate that, or?
Well, no, there's 5 of us kids on the farm, and the thing about it is farming was laborious. Picking cotton and chopping cotton out in that heat and such, and 5 of us children, there's going to be someone that wasn't going to be able to stay on a 160-acre farm. And by my taking, I took vocational agriculture in high school, and I got excited about the possibility of going to college. And since my brother was in the service, I got deferred. I had a farm deferment, and the crops were laid by. And I told my dad, I said, I'm out here, the crops are laid by, here I am, out here on the farm, nothing to do, from sun up to sundown, much of anything. I said, I'd like to go ahead and volunteer, because if I don't pass, I'd like to go on to college. And I said, there's a possibility I won't pass my physical. And I said, if I do pass it, I said, I'm just out here on the farm and with not much to do. But I passed my physical. And to answer your question, I'd planned on going to college.
Okay. And what year were you, now did your parents have to sign you over? Or were you old enough to make that decision?
I was 18 years old.
Okay.
I was drafted.
And this is right after your high school, so you graduated high school in 44 then?
I graduated in 45, in May 45, and I got a deferment. And then about July the 1st, crops was in. And so I just told Dad I didn't want deferred. And so about July the 19th, I believe, I was inducted in the Army. And so about 3 months after I turned 18, I was carrying a rifle.
Where did you do your basic training at?
Camp Fannin here in Texas, out of Tyler, Texas. Camp Fannin is the name of it.
What regiment, what division?
Well, I trained, I got into special services, intelligence and reconnaissance was what I trained in. And I was slotted to go to Japan, and whenever they dropped the atomic bomb, Japan surrendered, they diverted me to go to Germany. So I landed in Germany and spent the first winter after the war. And I got into headquarters, being an intelligence reconnaissance, I got into headquarters outfit, and I got into the legal, I got into court-martial section, because as soon as the war was over, what was legal one day ceased to be legal the next day, and there were a lot of criminal indictments because of trying to adjust from wartime and peacetime, and so we had a number of legal cases we had to deal, and I got into the court-martial section, working up particular court cases.
Describe for us what Germany at that time was like, because that was one of their darkest winters after the
Yes.
war.
When we landed in Le Havre, it was in a snowstorm. My father was in World War I, and he had landed in Le Havre. And Le Havre was nothing but just a bunch of old, rusty, floating docks. And we offloaded the troop ship and got out, lined up, and we were in a snowstorm, lined up, and then broke out blankets and loaded us in cattle cars. And gave us some blankets and some sea rations, and so we started going across Germany in these cattle cars, and then we got over into some other types of boxcars, and we tried to cook our meals on them, but that didn't work too well. And I landed in Bamberg, Germany, for a while, and was there in the old Panzer Division, but everything was just rubble. And then finally I was assigned to headquarters outfit in Nuremberg, Germany. I regret I was there during war trials, but since they were just old hat, I never did attend the war trials. And I regret it because now, if you look back historically, it had been important. I recall that whenever they hanged all the war crime persons, we were on high security because we were afraid that the Germans would be some reaction. Thankfully, there wasn't a whole lot of reaction to during the time of execution. But I guess probably one of the scariest times, I got lost in rubble one night, and the Germans, what to do, they'd catch an American soldier out, they would kill him, steal his Jeep and such. So we couldn't do much to them, but they could do things to us. So I finally found my way out of that rubble, but I was really frightened because I was really set up there to be assassinated and to get my Jeep stolen from me. It was sad to see women chasing after Army sewage. The Army had big old tankers that they would take the kitchen sewage out, and there'd be women following with screened wire, catching the solids out of the garbage of the trucks, and then fight over the garbage solids by putting their screens on under where they were discharging those the garbage. It was pretty sad for an 18-year-old kid.
When did you get out of the service then?
I took terminal leave. I didn't take all my leave while I was in there, and I got terminal leave, and I got out in 1947, and I entered Oklahoma A&M in February '47. I finished my BS degree in 3 years by attending all the intersessions, summer sessions, and all. So I got out in '47.
You got out of service in 47?
Right.
What, and you arrived on campus in the fall of 47?
Yeah, I said what I did, I enrolled in, would be in the following spring.
Oh, so spring 48.
Well, it'll be, let's see, I got out, no, okay, I got out in the spring of 47, I said fall.
Okay.
47.
Okay.
Yeah.
Had you ever been to Stillwater before?
In Stillwater?
Before actually arriving on campus?
Yeah, I went there for an FFA convention. I was in high school. I was Northeast District Vice President in Future Farmers America. Yeah, in 45 I was. So I was there for the conference.
And where was that at? Where was that on campus?
I believe it was held in the old Gallagher Hall.
Okay.
I believe, yeah, it was the old.
It wasn't so old at that time.
No, it was.
What was your impressions of the campus when you first, set back foot on campus?
Oh, you back in 47?
Yes.
Well, our library was Quonset huts. And I took courses at Old Central. That was also where you had test and measurements, but that's where I took some courses at Old Central. But the Quonset hut library was kind of unusual, but that's the way it was. Of course, we ate in a cafeteria there in the center of the campus. It was a little bit different, I'll tell you, than what it is now.
Mm-hmm. Where did you live in Stillwater?
My brother had gotten out of the Marines ahead of me, and so when we got out, he arranged to rent an upper bedroom from one of the veterans out at Vet Village. That was out west of town. We had to walk out to the old vet village, and my brother and I rented an upper bedroom from a family and shared the bathroom there.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all gone now, but those are still.
Oh, the vet villages, yeah.
Yeah, it was all.
There's like one or two buildings remaining, but pretty much.
It's the old wooden buildings, upstairs.
And your classes were where?
Oh, I had some, I guess, in Quonset, but Old Central, then there's a building there close to Old Central that I had a class in. I can't think of it, it may not be there anymore. And then I had some over in the life science area, at botany, over in the life science area. Then when I got into ag, it was Whitehurst, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Whitehurst Hall, I had classes there.
Mm-hmm. Who were some of your professors that you had? Or what was your favorite professors or favorite courses that you had?
Oh, well, I would say probably some of the ag ed courses. Dr. Robert Price, the late, he died not too long ago, was a fine professor that I enjoyed. Primarily that, and also I had in horticulture classes, I had some fine teachers. But I'd say it would be the agriculture courses that I enjoyed most.
What did you enjoy about them? Because they were hands-on, or?
Well, primarily it's like with my ag background.
Mm-hmm.
History wasn't particularly my favorite subject, and English wasn't. I wasn't very well academically prepared for that, for the English, and my older brother was my tutor. If it hadn't been for him tutoring me, I don't know whether I'd made it, because my education educational background, especially in grade school, in that rural area and at the beginning of the war and all. Teachers being drafted and substitute teachers. I had a real poor basic education.
What was your brother going to school for?
He majored in dairy manufacturing.
He did what? What
Dairy
manufacturing?
manufacturing work. The college processed its own milk, made its own ice cream. In fact, after he graduated, he managed the plant there, and I delivered milk to dormitories for him. He hired me to, at 5 o'clock, after I got married, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd go haul milk to the dormitories. So, yeah, the college produced its own eggs and milk and ice cream.
Where was that dairy at then?
The old dairy was not too far out west of town, and they built the castle we called Palace. We went out there later, but it was not too far. The old area, I think they turned it into a veterinary science building now.
Okay, I know where that is.
That was the old dairy area. Of course, I guess they were destroyed. I mean, they raised it and replaced it.
Now, you were pretty busy because you graduated within 3 years. Did you partake in any student activities or?
Not much. I was immune from taking ROTC because of my military service. I was immune from physical education because of the military service. And so, no, it was primarily, now I did join one of the Aggie clubs, but no, I didn't have much, as you say. I went to summer school and other sessions in order to get through because I was anxious to make a living.
It's about time to move on with your life.
Yeah.
Did you go to any sporting events or?
Well, we, of course, all the students had tickets sometimes. They were tickets at every other game kind of tickets. You couldn't go to every one of them, but we'd go see basketball and some football.
Do you remember much about Mr. Iva or?
Last time I talked with Mr. Iva, he visited me at Murray State College. He had a son who was coaching in Texas and had come up to look at some of our players at Murray State, and there was Hank Iva himself, and then had a good visit with Hank. During my time, I was getting ready to go to Ethiopia. Met with all the faculty and opening ceremonies, and had a good visit with Hank. He was a very personal person, individual. I guess his son is maybe still coaching somewhere.
I do believe so. And you graduated in 1950. What did you do in the meantime before you went back to get your? Oh, maybe trace it. I'm sorry. You went to grad school after your.
Yeah, you'll see in my bio later that I finished in 3 years. I had still a spring that I did a master's degree while my wife finished her BS degree. I did a semester on my master's, then I got a job teaching at OOHRP and finished up my master's by going back to summer school. I got my master's, I believe, in '54, since I'd already gotten half of it before I left for employment.
Maybe back up a little. How did you meet your wife?
We met on a blind date. Some of my friends and my brother, too, they were from Checotah. They were bunch of us that kind of having gone to Checotah and gotten out of the military. Well, they had seen her and she'd been out on dates with some of them, and so they called my attention to her. So they arranged for a blind date. I met her on a blind date.
Where was that first date?
Where?
Yes.
It was there at the college. We just went out together on a blind date and seemed to, I'd be in 19 and, I suppose, shortly after I started school, because then we both worked in the cafeteria. She served on the serving line and I washed tables, and then I would walk her to the dorm after. And since she worked at the cafeteria, the freshmen didn't have to be in at 6 o'clock. All the other freshmen had to be in. She lived in Willard, Willard Hall. She had to be in, all freshmen had to be in at 6, women. But since she worked at the cafeteria, we spent a lot of time. We could get going home, taking her.
Note that clock.
Yeah. So we then, we got married in August '48, so we'll be, coming August 2010, it'll be 62 years, yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
And okay, so you waited. You were teaching at Owasso while she finished up her degree.
No, I finished up in the fall semester, so I had a spring semester unemployed, and so I just went on ahead and worked on my master's. And she still liked the summer, and but by that semester and a summer term, she got her degree, and then went to Owasso and started there, I guess, about July the 1st, I guess, and about 50. It's there somewhere in that Bible data.
Okay, and then you taught briefly at Broken Arrow?
I taught in Broken Arrow. I taught a number of years. You see there, I taught from 52 to 56.
Yes, you're right. Okay, I misread the timeline here. And why did you decide to pursue doctorate in higher education?
Well, I was invited. I was a practice teacher. Agid thought enough of me that they named my department as practice teaching department, and so evidently they were impressed with me, and they invited me for a fellowship, graduate fellowship back at OSU, and I thought, I got to thinking, you know, this teaching boag is all right, but it's a young man's job, because I was busy. I spent a lot of time in Tulsa County. The thing about it is, in Tulsa County, where I taught at Broken Arrow, there were a lot of oilmen that had ranches. And weekends, they enjoyed to come to the ranch. And they enjoyed having me out on Saturdays. They'd let me go to church on Sunday, but if I was available Sunday afternoon, they would like for me to be out helping them with their ranch. There wasn't many veterinarians, if any, in that area, so I did quite a bit of surgery.
And you were a practicing doctor.
All the way teachers taught students how to do surgery, dehorning and emasculating, all that, vaccinating. So yeah, I've done a lot of that for some of those oilmen. That was their, as I say, they enjoyed coming out on weekends, their ranches, and they kind of expected the boag teacher to serve the community.
So you were being a little burned out, or you just wanted
Well, I
to...
wasn't burned out. It's just the fact that I enjoyed my work. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, I went back and to the 55th reunion of my, one of my classes. I hadn't seen some of my students in 55 years. And we had a ball, I'll tell you. Some of them in the early 70s as kids.
Oh, those kids in the early
Yeah,
70s.
And so anyway, I just knew that it was I just knew that it was an opportunity for me to advance myself in my profession. I really wasn't burned out. It's just an opportunity for advancement.
And you wanted to eventually teach agriculture?
Well,
At the
I
college
wanted, at
level?
the university, I wanted to go up to the university level with the doctorates. And so that's, that would be my goal, is to go to the university level. And, but, you know, after I got my doctorates, I had this opportunity to go to Ethiopia, so
Okay.
that's the way it went.
All right. Yeah, let's get into that then. Maybe, how were you asked, how were you approached, how did you find out about going, your opportunity to spend time in Ethiopia?
Well, Professor Anger, who was head of the Ag Ed department, had been in Ethiopia, and some of the others.
Professor who?
Dutch Anger,
Okay.
Professor Anger,
Okay.
Clarence, I believe his name. They call him. I didn't call him Dutch, but in fact, there's a picture of him in here. And he'd been there, and some of the other officials that OSU had been there, and actually had been, Professor Anker had been president of the college where I went. And then there was other Lawrence Parcher, who was, he was a professor in economics, and some of the others. And when I got my doctorates, Professor Anger said, hey, you know, this might be a good opportunity for you to go. And Hugh Rauch, Hugh, I'd known him. In fact, Hugh had taught down at Murray State in his earlier years. And so just kind of networking. They said, yeah, this would be a good opportunity for you. And so the wife and I talked it over. And I said, okay. So anyway, after we agreed to go, we had second thoughts. I think she cried for a week, and after she got through, I did, because we wondered if we were really doing the right thing. Because again, we had a 4-year-old son, and taking him away from grandparents and all that, it was quite an undertaking. But we don't regret it at all. It's one of the finest experiences that one could ever want. And by being able to travel back and forth, I was able to take my family on the way over. My first trip was able to take my family where I was during the war. We rented vehicles and traveled in Germany where I had been, and then we were able to visit India and Hong Kong and Japan and other areas. And it worked out real well.
What pushed you over the edge that said, hey, we're gonna do this? What was that thing that sparked your interest the most about going over?
Well, one of the things is, like it is today, finding a job opportunity that was appealing. Job opportunities weren't really plentiful when I got my doctorates, and so this was one reason. It was an opportunity to get on with my profession. So it wasn't that it was so attractive going that way. It was so unattractive if I didn't go.
Yeah.
So if you follow what I'm thinking.
That's right. I understand that feeling. Now, okay, sorry.
No problem.
Let's back up a little,
Okay.
because how did you feel? Were you aware of Dr. Bennett's mission about international education? Were you aware of that?
Well, to
His
some,
philosophy?
To some degree, I have met Dr. Bennett, and I know that he had, one time we had him at the FFA meeting one night there when I was, I guess I was not in graduate school, but I was familiar with that to some degree. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I think he did have, it just worked out that way. He was named by Truman as a director of the War program.
What do you remember about Dr. Bennett?
Well, this primarily, I wasn't around him much, but he had a great deal of vision. He had a good standpoint. He was a person with a great deal of common sense and diplomacy. He knew the political world, but he was the kind of politician that it was more public relations than it was what we consider as a political intrigues.
Did you feel like when you were going to Ethiopia that you were fulfilling his mission, or?
Well, at that given time, I never particularly related to his mission as much as I related to what Mr. Abbott, who was then was director of that particular program, tend to instill in what we were doing and talking with people that had been there. One of my friends that I had done my practice teaching with, Tom Siegenthaler, who's passed on now, he had been there and visiting with them, but it was kind of an exciting thing for me.
But in retrospect, do you feel that your experience over there fulfilled his mission?
I would think so, absolutely. In fact, it probably fulfilled it more than he would probably expect it, because Luther Brandon, he's passed on now, but he made some bold comments that you might have read in some of his reports, that it was something, if we'd really known what we were getting to, we might not have gone, but as a result, because of the fact it was unknown, we were able to do some things innovative and accomplish some things. Just like, I mean, for example, bringing in 2 plane loads of dairy animals from Kenya, nobody would envision that. And that just happened to come to my mind here. I was in my early 30s, but I got to thinking, you know, we're trying to develop an ag institution here. We were importing frozen semen from the States to cross breed in the beef area, but we weren't doing anything with the dairy. And it just happened to strike me that, hey, here, these British have had these cattle here for a number of years. They're getting acclimated, and with my relationship with the Central Ethiopian government, it was no problem at all. It's kind of unusual to see this plane come landing and all these cattle come off this cargo plane. It was an old C-47.
Yeah.
Converted DC-3, just take the seats out and you got a C-47. So It was intriguing, very exciting, and I had a lot of Ethiopians, and still I communicate with people back in Ethiopia.
You were in Ethiopia 58 to 66?
I went there in 58 and came home in 66. I was there 8 years.
Your first 2 years were at Jimma, right?
That's right, at the Technical Institute.
What was your role there?
I succeeded Hugh Rauch as Director of Research and Instruction at Jimma, obviously. I had a co-director who was an Ethiopian, but I was director of the school.
Just backing up a little bit, who arranged for you to go over, and what was that process like?
Well, Bill Abbott, he's still alive, and I would hope you get to visit with him.
I haven't visited with him.
Have you?
Yes.
Bill was the one that his office made all the arrangements. And Bill was very, very supportive. He would come and he would make frequent trips over there, and he and I would consult with each other. There were some instances where some of the employees just weren't working out, and it was kind of a difficult situation at times. So some of my own personal friends that I would go on safari with got to the point sometimes where I just say, I'm sorry, but when this tour is over, we're going to need to swap you out. And I remember sitting there and crying with one of them. I just, with tears in my eyes, I said, no, it's just not working out. And so, anyway, Bill was very good to work with him, as I say, gave him good support.
What kind of materials did you bring over for your use and for your family's use?
Just household goods. I'm not a hunter, and I didn't take any camping or any firearms or anything. I wasn't about to be caught out there in the middle of Africa and the hyenas and lions and all that. So we just took basic household items, and that's about it.
And you shipped them?
Yeah,
Like ships, cargo ships?
They're called sea freight. We had some air freight, light items. We said air freight, but most of it was what we call sea freight. It came in big ocean cartons.
And how long did you physically, for you to get over there, how long was that?
Well, Bill would permit us so many days to get there, give us so much per diem. And of course, like going between here and Addis Ababa, you would land in, let's say, Paris, and then you'd, or Frankfurt, Germany, or going down and land, say, in Athens. So if you wanted to stay off and pay your own way, let's say, like we did at Frankfurt when we first went. Since I'd been there, we stopped in Frankfurt and toured areas where I had been at our expense. Then we'd get back and so I would say our first trip over, we got there in about 5 days. And we did the same thing coming and going at times. We would, as I say, we'd stop off, since we were en route, we'd stop off or pay a little extra for this or that.
And you were initially assigned Jimma?
Jimma, right, yes.
Describe that campus for us.
Well, it was an old Italian establishment. They had built
I will tell you what.
Italian establishment.
Oh, establishment.
The Italians had built this, evidently it was some kind of school, because they had built the main building there, and they had their employee houses that they built there in a compound. And so it was not extremely modern, but it was adequate. We used well water to furnish our homes. Our electricity wasn't on all the time, so we would use kerosene refrigeration. We'd use kerosene burners under our refrigerators, and we'd use charcoal to heat our water. So it was, as I say, it was adequate, but it certainly wasn't real modern.
Where was that campus in Ethiopia? Where's Jimma?
Where is Jimma?
Yes.
Jimma is south of Addis Ababa, about 300 kilometers. It's in Kaffa province. That's supposedly where coffee originated, was in Kaffa province.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of our research was in coffee. We did a lot of research in coffee, as well as some research in vegetables.
But this was the technical school, right?
That's right. It was a high school.
Oh, okay.
High school level.
Okay.
High school level, technical school.
And the students were there to be trained in vocational skills, or?
Primarily it was, yeah. And those that were academically capable went on to Alamaya, went on to the university system. But all of them didn't. And that causes some problems because many of those students, Jacob, started out, and I don't know how detailed you want on this, but after the war, the emperor sent into the provinces and brought in from all over Ethiopia youngsters, many of them who lost their fathers during the war, and actually brought them in.
Orphans?
Orphans, brought them in, and some of them weren't, but brought them into the capital and put them in behind tall walls, and said, I want Ethiopia to get an education. And so, in fact, he sent trucks and soldiers out and brought them in. And I had heard someone tell me, he said, boy, talk about squalling and crying at night. They were kind of brought in, so I say under coercion. And then what the emperor did, he signed some of his royal family members and said, you're responsible to close this group, you're responsible to close this group, and farmed them out as far as their clothing is concerned. And so, now, all of them stayed up behind the wall. I mean, they couldn't escape. And so they developed them and through the educational system. And as a result, then, once they reached high school, they could go down Jima, they went to Ambo, they went to high schools outside. But after they finished high school, then that was the big problem. I had one student come to me after he graduated, and he said, Dr. Kindell, I'm not going to be permitted to go to college. Now, he said, I finished high school. He said, what are you going to do with me now? I said, what do you mean, what are you going to do with me? He said, I don't have anything, I don't have a place to go. I said, can you go home? He said, I don't have a home. He said, I don't have a home. He said, I was removed from my home years ago. He said, I don't have any place to go. And he cried, and I really felt sorry for him. But there's a number of those youngsters that had then to kind of go into coolie type labor. They just didn't have a place to go.
So the government the government would cap the number of students that went on to into the university system?
Yeah, we had caps even at Jima. We had a lot more wanted to come than we could put in. Oh yeah, we had to cull them when I say cull them, we had to select them very carefully. And select them very carefully going to university, because the thing about it is we were kind of imposing American standards of excellence on them. I mean, what else could we do? I mean, we had to establish some standards. Those standards usually was based on American standards.
Did you, how many teachers did you have at GMA? How many students at a time did you have there?
We, at GMA, we had 200. We had classes, we had A and B, ninth grade A and B, 25 in each class. And then 10th grade A and B.
So each class was 50 students?
Each class was 50 students because we didn't have any way to care for them, the dormitory and food and all that. So 200 was the number at GMA.
What about number of teachers?
Our teachers there, we had a few Ethiopian students who taught Amharic primarily, but I would say, let's see, we had about, I'd say a dozen of American teachers.
And the American teachers were affiliated with OSU or no?
They came through OSU. Some of them weren't OSU people, but most of them were Oklahoma people.
Okay.
And Bill Abbott's one that would recruit.
Mm-hmm. And these students would be ages like normal American students, 14 through 18, or was there a difference?
Some of them were quite older. Yeah. Some were in their 20s. They weren't like our normal age students.
What did you like about your job, your assignment at GMA?
Well, one thing it was a new experience, a new culture, a new environment, and it was an opportunity to do things that were kind of innovative, and it's just it was quite exciting. Like
what innovative things that you did?
Well, one thing, for example, we used mules instead of oxen for power. The Ethiopians, their mules were their Cadillacs. They would ride mules. And that was, mule is easier to ride than a horse, And so we took those mules and we'd made harness and showed Ethiopians that they could actually use mules for farm power. Another thing is to thresh teff, which is the grain, and then pile up the teff, and this run cattle around, and those cattle would beat it out. Well, we made a big old, took a big log and put spikes on it, and made it where it looked like cattle, and round, and all. If you see these sheep foot on the highway, where they pack, well, we experimented with that, and rather than having cattle, we would use that log to beat out the tap. Of course, and of course, introducing different type chickens. Of course, we couldn't raise white chicken. We found out why there's no white chickens in Africa.
Why is that?
The predators would get them very quickly, and so we had to stick with camouflage type leghorn chickens, and so we learned some things. Using fertilizer, commercial fertilizer, like on vegetables. We didn't realize that, for example, on tomatoes, phosphorus acted like nitrogen here. And of course, again, through our experimentations, we were able to, I think, do some very, very fine things.
I asked him the question about girls attending school.
Oh, it was all male school. Alameda was all male also.
Okay. How were girls treated within Ethiopian society at that time?
Well, they weren't, from what we gather, women, especially those who were educated and from the educated population were treated quite equally. Now, in the society, women they were the ones who would carry the wood, and them donkeys and camels carried the wood. The men wouldn't let the women carry the chickens. They were too valuable, so the men would carry the chickens. But you never saw a man carrying wood. So they were pretty well, and to carry the water, you never saw men carry water. They were kind of the workforce in the household. Now, you never saw a woman plowing with oxen behind a wooden plow. That was a man's job. And the man would harvest the taff and grain. That was men's work. But when it came to household or anything associated with the household, it was the women that did it. They ground the grain and this sort of thing. That expanded the household chores a little bit beyond what we would consider normal.
Mm-hmm. How were the students recommended to Juma?
Well, one was, from standpoint, I've had members of the royal family call me and put in a good word for some of the students for which she was responsible. But many of it was based upon their academics out of grade school. They had to be well versed in English, and also they had to be academically prepared for the upper grades. And there were just, of course, many of them coming out of elementary that were not ready for high school, and so they had no opportunity to get an education.
What was the curriculum like?
Our curriculum there at GMA, at the high school level, it pretty well followed a similar curriculum as ours in a agricultural technical school. Now, since it was agriculturally oriented, the curriculum included, of course, animal sciences, which included poultry as well as beef animals and sheep. Also, economics. I taught a class in economics in high school, and including some foreign management. Math, going through algebra and geometry. The sciences, in chemistry, similar to here in the States. Also the biology. The biology was similar. So it was basically similar, but tied to the Ethiopian culture, so to speak. I mean, the animals and all the particular materials class, but materials that we used were Ethiopian.
Was there any shop classes?
Very, very little there at the agriculture technical school.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about English?
English, yes, very much so. They, in fact, we had about 4 years of English.
Physical education or no?
Beg pardon?
Physical ed?
We had, the soccer was really the main, and they had enough physical education by getting out and after school hours, because since they lived on campus. Then after 5, of course, all of them had some chores to do. They would be assigned to take care of the poultry. In fact, we had some swine there, but it was primarily for American consumption, because Ethiopians are not, being Coptic Christians or Muslims, the swine wasn't really on their diet.
Yes.
But
Culturally, it's
yeah,
perceived
but
to be.
they had the particular, some had to do janitorial sorts of things, and some fed the chickens, as they took care of the livestock, and also had to work in the fields, cutting tip, or if they worked in the vegetables, they had work to do. But soccer team, we had a tremendous soccer team, and also the kids, in sports. Now at the college level, we had physical education as such, but at the technical school, we had very little sports.
How did you get transferred to Alamaya?
Well, Lawrence Parcher, the late Lawrence Parcher was, he wanted to terminate his tenure over there. And so they were looking around for somebody to replace Parcher. And evidently they were impressed with my administration down at GEMA, and they put my name forward, but as I mentioned, they were a little concerned about my age, because that was in 1960 and I had just turned 33, being born in 27. So they were concerned that the emperor might not want someone that didn't have a little gray hair. Because gray hair is, in Ethiopia is a sign of wisdom and maturity and experience and all that. They tend to show respect to gray hair. But as I reflected, that he was, when he became a regent himself, he was in his early 30s, so he never, see, my position was the only one that the emperor had to approve at his level. Others had to be approved by the ministries, but the president of the college had to be approved by the emperor himself, and so my appointment had to be conferred by him.
Was there a liberal arts school?
Beg your pardon?
Was there a main university where liberal arts education was taught?
Oh
in
yeah,
Ethiopia?
that's it. That was at Addis Ababa. Some of the old palaces had been converted to the university system.
Okay. And all right, who did you replace? Louis Parcher up there?
Lawrence Parcher.
Lawrence Parcher?
Yeah, he was in the econ at OSU. Lawrence passed away a number of years ago with cancer.
Who followed you at GEMA?
Bob Meisner.
Bob Meisner?
Yeah, we got a picture of him here.
Okay.
Bob Meisner.
Maybe describe for us the geographic differences between Alamaya and GEMA.
Well, GEMA was more subtropical than Alamaya. Alamaya was over close to the lower plains area, and it was at the edge of the escarpment, whereas GEMA was in the middle of the mountainous region, and it was south of the capital, as I say, down in more of a subtropical area, and whereas Alamaya was over in the eastern area of Ethiopia and right at the edge of the escarpment. In other words, Deir Dawa, which was the closest town of any size besides Harar, was at it was, I believe, at about 3,500 feet, and that's where the The plains began, it went on to the ocean. And the rains at rainy season in Jima was much more pronounced than the rains at Alamayo. And to the humidity, which it wasn't bad in either place really. The humidity was higher in Jima. Jima was foggy quite a bit every morning, whereas in Alamayo we didn't have to deal with fog. So,
Explain for us how the college at why the site was chosen
well,
for the college.
okay, the emperor, Haile Selassie, his real name was Tefera Makonnen. Ross Tefera Makonnen. Ross is a title. Tefera Makonnen was born in Jersagora, not too far from the site of the college in Harare province. And his father, big Ross Makonnen, who was cousin to Emperor Menelik, was of course being his home province, and he also held the title of governorship of Harare. He never permitted anyone to be named governor. Now they could be vice governor or deputy governor or something like that. But it was because that was the emperor's home province. I think he grew up there, was born there close by. And he chose that area there close to Lake Alamai, which is a beautiful view, a really beautiful area. Now, I don't know who owned the land at the time, but the thing about it is, at the time we were there, the church owned about 1/3 of the land. The royal family and the high officials owned about the other 1/3 of the land in Ethiopia. Then the peasants themselves, I call it peasants, owned about the other 1/3.
Mm-hmm.
So who actually owned that particular land, I don't know, but regardless, the farming people had to be removed because even though the church owned the land, the renters, they had to pay rent for the use of the land. So there had to be some removal of people from that particular area. But it was about 900 acres, I believe, we had there in the Emperor's province,
What
province.
When you arrived, were the structures complete?
Oh no, the dormitories were complete, but we added added the new library. We also added some classrooms. We added a very modern dairy barn. Then we built homes for the faculty and staff members. No, it wasn't. It was not nearly complete now. I understand they've got quite a complex there.
When you left, was it quote unquote complete when you left in '68?
Oh no, it was still building, and if you've seen some recent pictures of it, they've got women down there now. They're teaching more than ag. Ours was primarily agriculture-related courses, since it was a College of Agriculture of the university system.
How many buildings were there?
Well, you're talking about a residence and all, or?
Like campus structures.
Oh, okay, we had cafeteria, 2 dormitories, 2 classroom buildings, 6 cafeteria, 2 classroom buildings, administration building, the clinic. I would say that there's probably about 12.
12.
12 academic related buildings.
And were these structures based on OSU structures, or I always thought there was a tie into the architecture?
Well, OSU provided the architectures, yeah, and a backup at OSU. No, they were, OSU provided the architects.
And you had 900 acres. What kind of crops were grown there?
Well, we had a greenhouse down in the middle of the acres. One thing, we grew wheat, and we grew corn, and we grew some teff, some barley, and then we had quite a bit of vegetable production. We did a lot of research in vegetables. Then we had pasture land, and we had a little bit of problem with that because as we rotated the pasture, the locals would come in and cut the grass and haul it off, because to them it didn't look good unless it was virtually
Bare.
in the bare. They thought it was a waste while we were trying to rotate our pasture. They were carrying off our rotation.
And you were trying to keep the tillage there.
Yeah, and we had the governor, the assistant governor, to come out and talk to the people. And my Ethiopian administrator, he said, he looked down there one day and he said, you know, sometimes it's best to live, it's easier to live with the problem than it is try to solve it. That was his philosophy. But in the greenhouse, we had a very, very nice greenhouse. We got pictures of the emperor there visiting it. We did vegetable research. So, and we did some citrus, not a whole lot. And also, we did forestry research on different kind of trees. We had what we call an arboretum, real nice area. We'd go down and picnic. We'd have different kind of trees that we're trying, experimenting with.
What kind of trees were grown there?
Eucalyptus is the primarily one. It was brought in from Australia some years ago and is a mainstay. In fact, when you see scaffolding, when buildings, the scaffolding's made out of eucalyptus poles. And that's, people, you see the locals have leaves wadded up, stuck up their nose. Well, if you ever use eucalyptus cough drops, they were using it before we were. Dealing with sinus problems.
And what animals were raised there?
We dealt primarily there at the beginning with beef animals. They were the zebus, or type of animal, the humped animal. There was the Brano people down in the southern part of Ethiopia, the Branos. Was a section, and they had developed nearly a purebred zebu type animal. It was pure white and really a quality animal. The college got permission to go down and buy some foundation stock from the people. And anyway, it was primarily beef. Now what we did though, we wanted to see what would happen if we crossed them with what we call European breeds, actually, the Hereford and the Angus. We may call them American breeds, but here we call them European breeds. And we'd have use frozen semen and artificial inseminate, and we got some real fine results. In fact, we've got a picture of one of the students presenting the emperor, one of the steers, crossbreds, as kind of honoring him. He used it, I think, for a state dinner. And as Bev and I think I'll put that in my narrative. But what we found was the inherent ability of the native cattle to put on flesh during the rainy season. I mean, they were rapid gainers. It had to be in order to survive of the fittest. If an animal couldn't put on weight during the rainy season, they couldn't make it
survive the dry season.
Couldn't make it through the dry season. So by crossing them with American breeds, we in the feedlot, man, oh man, those rascals would feed out very quickly. Now we call them Brahmas here, the Brahma breed, but the real basic is a zebu because there's different breeds of zebu. I think they originated in India, but it was primarily beef until I flew. I say I.
Yeah, you can go into that story.
Till I had the idea, well, we'd bring in some dairy cattle.
Tell that story.
Well, as we saw during our stay there that Kenya had gained its independence. And by gaining its independence, it began then to break up large tracts of land that what we call the White Highlanders had developed there. The Europeans, primarily the British, had developed large estates and had large dairy herds. And so whenever Kenya gained its independence, it began to break up these large tracts and divide them among the locals. As a result, there had to be a lot of dispersal of those large herds of dairy animals. So I got the idea that since they were dispersing these dairy animals, and we had not developed a dairy program at the college, that the best, one of the things we do, we could see if we couldn't get a start from Kenya with some young foundation Holsteins primarily, and bring them into Ethiopia. So I broached the government officials with that, and evidently the emperor had to approve such move, but got approval to bring in 2 C-47 loads of young dairy heifers. And then we developed a modern milking system and began then to provide the students fresh milk daily. In fact, we bought milk from them. The emperor was very, very excited about that. And I had told us we had the dairy facility going. It was modern, similar to the ones here in the States. And as we were going into the barn, the emperor turned to me and said, "Are you going to produce milk like you do in the United States?" Well, I felt like it might be a little bit of a loaded question because sometimes we were criticized by visiting dignitaries, especially Russians, that they were saying we were trying to make a little America out of it, you know. So I said to the emperor, "Well, not exactly, Your Majesty." And boy, he snapped back and said, "Why not?" I said, "Well, it's real close, Your Majesty, it's real close." Because I said I didn't want to get caught there and in this situation whereby we were being accused of trying to impose something on them that they couldn't carry out. But this was something it could do. Now, because of the rinderpest, which is a very violent disease in Ethiopia, we had to keep the cattle in dry lots. We couldn't let them run among the native cattle because of rinderpest. It was a terrible, terrible disease that wiped out any ungulates, even the deer population, anything that eliminated. But anyway, As far as I know, they still have some of the dairy cattle and some out in the area now that you'll see Holstein cows in the population, general population.
So, this started dairying in Ethiopia, you think?
Well,
or
they
was
had,
it
they
there?
had a dairy, they had a dairy up at Addis Ababa. It was a private dairy that wasn't too much of a dairy. It was called Holisa Dairy Farm, and I never did visit it, but I don't think it was really much of a dairy. And the thing about it is we had some of the high officials that were interested in dairy cattle, and they were interested in getting some start. They never coerced us into giving them anything, but they were interested in using the college foundation her to establish them one, which is no problem, because if you've got surplus livestock, you've got surplus bulls, certainly, that is no problem as long as someone has resources to establish a dairy.
Okay. Were students interested in dairying, or?
Oh, they're excited about it, yeah. And each of those students had a job to do. I had one student, I introduced the American beehive. The emperor was interested in that. I thought, well, here I am, president of the college, and I'm not doing any research. So I got the idea of doing research with honeybees. And by the way, when I showed the emperor, one time he came and I showed him a particular honey, a frame of honey. It was just as clear as it could be. As to what we were doing with the bees. He said, you know, it's too bad that people won't work as hard as those bees. That's his comment to me. But there was a retired camp of retired Army soldiers down close by the college, and they sent word and they wanted a pattern of those beehives. Actually, we use them here in America. They're called Langstrom, I believe. But it's the modern hive, because in Ethiopia they have cylinders that are beehives made out of straw, and whenever they get ready to rob the hive, they have to destroy the brood. Well, with the modern beehive, you don't touch the brood, and so far as I know, that's probably really developing. Now, one aside though, the President Lich Waldemar, the grandson-in-law, his wife was Princess Ida, which was the granddaughter of the emperor. He was interested in bees. If I'd have stayed one more year, there's a possibility that he and I would have imported some Italian queens. And that would have been catastrophic, because the Africanized bees from South America, they are reversed. In other words, they were, as far as I know, they were African drones. Or it might have been they were African queens. Anyway, we were going to bring in the queens, because you can bring in a bred queen. It's amazing. And we were going to make these bees more docile, because those African bees are pretty hostile. And even though I worked with them, I thought, you know, it'd be good if we could have a little more docile. And by bringing in some Italian queens and cross with these drones, we ought to be able to have a really high producer, because the African bee is a high producer, because it's got 20, you know, it's got 12 months out of the year that it can produce honey. But it would have run our African off that continent, because genetically it would have just been a reverse gene.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, because I think those were African queens that they brought into South America.
Yes.
And crossed them with the, what we call Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they brought in, let's see, we would brought in
The Italian queens.
Italian queens, and we crossed them on African drones. And what they did there, I think they brought in,
The African queens.
they brought in African queens, yeah.
Italian. Oh,
There you go, yeah, they brought in the African queen
Yeah.
and crossed. There you go, it was reversed, it was reversed. Sorry about that.
no, it's all right. What activities were included with your job assignment?
What activities are you
Mhm.
talking about?
How did you run the university? How's
From the standpoint of administrative
Yes.
structure? Well, we had, similar to here in the States, we had the president who was the head of the institution, and then we had the vice president for academic affairs, or the dean of instruction. Then we had a dean of students. Now the dean of instruction, who happened to be Leonard Miller, Leonard came from the economics department. Under him, he had heads of departments, of divisions. For example, there was animal science division, engineering division, then the plant science division, and then we had the economics division, and then we had the division of language arts. So we had chairs of those divisions, and then they had faculty under them.
okay? Who would review your performance? How would you be evaluated?
The OSU had a special representative there. It happened to be Bonnie Nicholson when I first went there. Then it was Luther Brannon. And I actually, from the standpoint of communication with OSU, I reported directly to that representative, Dr. Wilhelm, representative of the president of Oklahoma State University. President of Oklahoma State University, whether it was Wilhelm or Com, it was Wilhelm, then Com, had a special representative who, as I say, was Bonnie Nicholson at one time, then Luther Brannon, as to whom I had correspondence with. And from the standpoint, what they really did, they offered guidance and such. So there wasn't a formal evaluation. But at the end of 2 years, they determined whether I'd come back or not. So they permitted me to come back as long as I wanted to, I guess. The emperor sent word and wanted me to come back another time. But I told Checotah, I said, you know, the Ethiopians now with their PhDs here, they're getting pretty restless about not getting in the positions of authority. So I just...
You felt the time was to change hands.
I said, President Checotah, this is the time to change because you've got capable Ethiopians. And I said, they're just really getting restless about an American being in charge of this. See, one of the reasons that I never had much of a problem with Ethiopian faculty, they never knew what I talked to the emperor about. We never said anything, but they wouldn't know whether, if I said something to the emperor, they'd literally be hauled off. I mean, so there was not only some respect, but there's a little bit of fear there because when you're a benevolent monarch, you're still a monarch. And all I'd had to say to him, oh, so-and-so was causing me some problems. And they didn't know, I never did talk to them about anybody about the faculty.
Yeah.
They didn't know I would.
Oh, so it was
Yeah, see, I mean, so it was there.
You didn't have any problems like that, did you?
No, I I had a few problems with one of the Ethiopians who wanted to be a vice president, and I told the Checotah, president of the university, I said, you know, if you want to change the country agreements, I said, those are country agreements, those are between two countries, and put me in some other position without my having the responsibility, I have no problem. But if I've got responsibility as country agreements have placed it, then I've got to have authority to carry out the responsibility, and he understood that. So since then, the university was formed. When I left there, it was easy for me to bring the presidency home with me, and I was the last president. What had happened to be then was dean of the college at the time, under the Haile Selassie First University Complex, College of Agriculture, dean of agriculture. So there's an Ethiopian that took my place, but not as president. And then Leonard Miller stayed as dean of academics in order to provide support to it. It worked out real well.
How often would you interact with the emperor?
How would I interact?
How often?
When he visited college, he'd probably come down at least once a year, maybe sometimes twice a year, depends on whether he had visitors or not. Now, Jomo Kenyatta came one time, and the emperor didn't come with him, but that was before Kenya gained its independence, and I think that's the reason that the emperor didn't come. Jomo came kind of unofficially. I don't know if you know anything about Jomo Kenyatta or not, but he was supposed to be head of the Mau Mau's at one time. But I've got pictures of my taking him about. He's quite a guy. You had to trot step with that guy. Anyway, I would say that he probably on average came twice a year, and then of course like here, the invitation, the Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, Minister of Imperial Courts, request attendance of Clyde and Mrs. Kindell to a dinner. So there's times when we would go to some of his affairs that I never sit down and personally talk with him. Now, what I've got there in that is my talking to him is like this. I mean, no, when I say like this, I mean no one-to-one. Not bow down to him and go to dinner.
Yes.
Such. So I would say that. Probably.
Okay. What was his philosophy on education?
The emperor had a vision that was far beyond the ability for the country to reach. He put a high value in education, and considered that the reason that Ethiopia was so underdeveloped was a lack of education, and all one needed to do, and I'm saying this parenthetically, is to educate your people, and that will develop your country. But he failed to realize that as these young men and women became educated, and many of them went abroad to get an education, they came back all enthusiastic as to see the developed countries and how well they have progressed. They come back home and they're all excited about what they can do now for their country, and that usually stays with them for about 6 months. Then reality sets in. Here they are. They've got an education. They're inspired for greater things, but the infrastructure, the resources are not in place for that. I mean, you know, like our extension agents, we have an extension agent here in Grayson County, but they've got an office, and they've got resources, they've got vehicles, they've got transportation. But you take Ethiopia, when you only got one main road and the rest of them are donkey trails. What is a person with a college education to do outside of the urban areas? And this is what happened is many of the educated, even the high school educated, they migrated to the city and caused more and more problems with the situation. And we had a boy that was from, we had Somalia kids. We were right at the edge of Somalia. Algernon was a whole Somalia tribe. It's just the fact that the political boundaries cut the Somali tribe in two. One of our good basketball players was a Somali boy, and some of the people drove down to Kenya and left him off at home and said, we'll be back up and get you and take you back to college. Well, he saw them coming when they were coming back, man. He said, I got to go back. He said, I'm about starving to death. He'd gone home and he couldn't make it in his old environment. So bless their hearts. The situation there is, and I'm concerned right now with the number of institutions of higher education now that's being developed in Ethiopia. There's several now that the graduates have gainful employment opportunities, because if they don't, it's going to be very hard on them, hard on society.
Why did the emperor take a personal liking to you?
I think it goes back to the fact that early on there, when they had the coup, that we kept an institution going. We showed loyalty, in a sense, to the emperor by maintaining the college, not missing a class. We invited the governor of the province to come and visit with us and talk to the students. Our interrelationship during that crisis made a very profound impact on the emperor. And I think that with that as the particular launching of my tenure as president of the college, kind of cemented a relationship there that held on to like a home. I mean, that's all thing, because really, he treated me more like a son than he did it. I wasn't with the diplomatic corps. I'm just no kid off the farm, so to speak. I wasn't schooled in diplomacy. I was schooled in courtesy, but I wasn't schooled in international diplomacy. But my being courteous to the emperor, loyal to him, and also meeting his family, the princes, and such, and my popularity there with the local governors, it just seemed to have a relationship that was unique.
What was his personality like?
The emperor...
did he actually ever show a side that was less dignified? You know what I'm trying to say?
the emperor was quite a dignified person, and certainly I think his position demanded it. But also, as you can see here in pictures, he had a warm side to him. And now, he was probably more warm to me out of the presence of his constituency than he would normally be. But he was he's really quiet, but he certainly was a dignified person. Very eloquent. His speeches were very eloquent. I read the one that he made before the League of Nations, when he was pleading his case. Very eloquent. And I'd go to his military academy graduations and be there. Again, I'd be in his presence and such as that, but I didn't have a personal conversation with him. His speech is extremely eloquent. Very, very articulate person. But to me, he was just really the image that he should portray, and that is dignity, but yet a warmth in dealing with at least with other, especially with the foreign constituency.
Did you have any conflicts with the emperor?
Have anyone?
Conflict?
Any conflicts with him?
Yes.
No, not that I know of.
Okay.
Because one thing and two, when he'd come, I would see that he was given a bunch of eggs that I paid for. The emperor, I never would let or go along with, just because he was emperor, he could carry off the college. The only time that we made a presentation to him in which he did not, or somebody did not pick up the tab, was that steer that to be used for a state dinner. And I, in my narrative, I said that I asked him what he wanted me to do with the steer, and he said he'd have Colonel Tomront, who was governor there, have Colonel Tomront to have it sent to Addis whenever he needed it for a banquet for visitors. See, Colonel Tomront Yogazu was married to an Emru, Ross Emru's daughter. Ross Emru was a cousin, first cousin of the emperor. So the lineage and all that, I personally knew those folks, and I knew who was kin to who. And it's kind of an unusual relationship. Her name was Martha, Colonel Tomront's wife. He was an attorney. He was a legal attorney. But anyway, he was married into the royal family. I'd say Checotah. Checotah was a Gala. He wasn't Amera, but he was son of a Gala king. And as a result, he was considered royal, and he was able then to marry Princess Ida, which was a granddaughter to the emperor.
Tell us about the horse stable story.
The horse stable?
Yes.
The only thing I know about the horse stables, oh, yeah, okay, about him, not down at the college, okay. One of his palaces was converted to part of the Addis First University. Now, outside by the palace, he had horse stables that hadn't been, he'd kept the horse stables going there on the palace grounds, even though the palace was a part of the university. He had to keep his horses somewhere, so he was coming out. As I was coming out of the university building door, I encountered the emperor and his entourage, and he was going over, walking over to his stables, which not were too far from the palace. And he saw me. I paused and bowed, as other people were doing the same thing. I mean, the emperor goes by, everybody stops and shows courtesy. Well, he saw me and waved me over, had me come over. arm around me and held my hand in a handshake. We walked toward the stables, and he was asking me how the college was doing, and we just kind of chit-chatted along till the conversation was over, and I bowed goodbye, and he went on the door stable. I went on back to get ready to go back to the college. So I say these kind of encounters, I don't mean to be a name dropper, but he knew me that well that if he saw me, wherever he saw me, he recognized me. It didn't have to be at the college, you know.
Yes. Could you share us how the emperor treated the Americans after the assassination of President Kennedy?
Well, the thing about it is, he was on his way down to visit the college, and was there in Deer Novel, which is close to Alabama, and was going to leave the next day. I believe come up to visit the college, and he got word that President Kennedy had been assassinated, so he left directly from there and went to funeral services. And then whenever he returned, he came right back to Deer Dama and arranged to come up to the campus and as the wife mentioned, he wanted to share condolence to each of the American family, faculty. So he said, and each one would go and bow, and he would express condolence to them. Then we had, and then he gave a talk to all of us, and I'm telling you, through his translator, he had a translator that could speak nearly simultaneously to him. He again expressed his condolence and spent considerable time talking to not only the Americans but also the Ethiopian faculty and students, and very, very eloquent talk. Then when he got ready to leave, he and I walked to the parking lot together, and he was sharing with me about his relationship with President Kennedy and how much that he admired President Kennedy, and that he shared with me that President Kennedy had asked his advice on some of the Middle Eastern conflicts that the Americans were using. And he just carried on conversation just very well. His English, even though many Ethiopians didn't know it, his English was very, very good, because he lived in England, you know, during the Italian occupation, and came back in to Ethiopia with the British general. So now he was more fluent in French, because French was the first diplomatic language.
Yes.
But his English was good.
Now, do you have any other memorable interactions with the emperor that stand out?
Well, I think I was telling you about the new library.
Oh yes. Please share with that.
I'd always recalled President Bennett shelling in a building, and if he ran out of money, he'd leave the shell there, and then later on bring people by who he could, in a sense, share with. We need to get some funds available. We need to get some appropriations here to complete these buildings. Well, when we built the library, it was on the side of the hill there, and it was a particular split level, and it's a beautiful top floor, but the bottom floor was just a sandy floor with pillars, out it, but there's a nice stairs down to it, concrete stairs. So I was showing him through the library, and then I took him downstairs, and we got in this large open space out here. All these pillars with sandy floor and all. And he asked about it. I said, well, Your Majesty, as soon as we get some money, I said, we'll finish this, and some of this will be part of office space, and some of it will be library reserve.
Yes.
And it wasn't long. It wasn't long till we got the money to finish it out, and it finished out very beautifully. We put the business office there where we paid our employees. It was easy, accessible, whereas before they had to come down the hall and all that. But anyway, I recalled Dr. Bennett and some of the things that he did, and it worked for us. And then we had the Rockefeller Foundation visitor come, Dr. McKelvey, and we got pictures of him here at the library, and the Rockefeller Foundation gave us $100,000 to stock it. We had John Stratton come in there and organize it. It was great.
What do you think the legacy of Haile Selassie is?
I think that as time goes by, there'll be a greater appreciation, even though right now, for those who knew him, have a great deal of appreciation and respect for his remembrance. But I think that more and more they'll find that he was able to take the leadership of an African country and have it stable a lot longer than some of the most of the other African countries that are still in chaos. He built in Addis Ababa. He had a building where the Conference of African Nations were held, and but he was visionary, and it's just too bad that the thing about it is that he probably hung on a little longer than he should have when he was doing the best he could and wanted to hang on to see Ethiopia develop more than what it is or was. He did more, I think, disservice to his legacy by probably staying a little bit longer than he should have.